Welcome back to my Let's Play Europa Universalis 4 as the Ottomans. So, last episode I was making up a new set of armies, or rather updating my current ones, dealing quite well with a slightly over-limit force. That includes a lot of cannons, pretty general stuff. Yeah, just a little bit of autonomy in these areas, that's all. So let's get to it. Well, that's nice. Means I won't have to worry about them when they get in. Well, then again, they get inherited by Castile soon enough, won't they? Now, dealing with the Mamluks is going to be a bit more difficult than with the QQ, since the Mamluks do have access to a lot of rich land. What I plan on doing is recovering my manpower reserves and then taking the Levant mission to then begin the war against them. Till then, I will most likely be taking up more texts and ideas. In particular, I hopefully will get this one. It will take quite a while for this to be done, and quite luckily, the ahead of time penalty will probably go away as I get around the area of taking that. Let's get an advisor and everything. Diplomatic reputation is especially nice if I want to vassalize someone. See, as Fiora is still independent, which is quite uncommon. Now, Georgia, despite me crushing a little area of it, has decided, you know what, I shall go on to become a good, strong power of the East. And I totally don't mind that. What I need to do is take these 3 provinces. I can just let whatever happens up here happen up here. I can go ahead and do this crap. Looks like they're about to full annex them. And of course they did. It's orthodox. They've revised their autonomy since they fixed that issue with the AI. And it looks like... yeah, it does have increased coring costs, so that's going to be a lot of admin, even if it is one base tax. Bit like attacking the Berbers, for example. This increased coring cost makes loads of stuff very expensive. Especially for European power. And I get these 3 provinces covered. Now, just to prevent any... I'm never going to get Albanian accepted, so I'm just going to get culture converted. Means I won't get any Albanian rebel events ever again once it's converted. So I can either go for the next idea, or I can wait for this tech, which gives a few important things like military tactics. Preferably, I'd prefer to be ahead on tech than military tactics. Than ideas. Brain fart. And taking out the Mamluks is going to be pretty important. Now, this will all be done in another 8 years or so. So I'm going to prepare all my armies, just in a relatively offensive position. The little event there's given me a little bit of extra manpower. Now this could be a boring episode. But in all honesty, sometimes it's better to be very stable before attacking. Because I've seen some players in multiplayer games, for example, play as Timurids and conquer vast amounts of India in short time, or promptly losing Persia due to despite their strong army, their overextension becomes quite the issue for them, and they begin collapsing. Typically lose all of India and their Persian land, which leaves them as little above average, and then they often rage quit. Sometimes it's pretty hilarious to see a player just yell at the game, but sometimes it's really annoying. Now, what I should focus on is, once I've got the Levant, you'll either give me the mission to take over Egypt itself, which will require 2 wars, or Mesopotamia, I believe, if I am even pronouncing that right. Which would be a very nice thing to take, because if I took that, well, that'd basically be the opening gate to East, which would involve fighting through the Timurid horde, which for some reason still hasn't managed to collapse. Which is sad. I want that to collapse. And I'm also yet to see I just hope it does collapse there. Not just for the fact that it'll be easier then to take him on, but it is pretty regular to see him collapse. Independence for Greece, you say? Nah. So that'll take another 3. Rise up in 8, so pretty safe. Or round 8 anyway. Now, I am looking forward to the next DLC in this game, since common sense sounds like it's really well used in minor nations. For example, Frankfurt, because with the ability to develop land, you could focus on certain areas. For example, say you were playing, let's see what nation would have a crossroad. Like, first of all, it'll block you from going through provinces, so if you had Spain, for example, you could have these as massive forts and develop them really well to be military installations, which would enable you to fight quite evenly with France then, I would imagine. While it would also enable nations, for example, Theodora, to develop a relatively strong little hold on them, and possibly even allow them to survive against bigger nations, or at least stand a better chance at becoming something. Though I would imagine Crimea is still going to probably crush them at the start of the game before they can do that half the time. But for bigger nations, I imagine it won't have as much of a role, though I would imagine you would still focus on developing key provinces, for example, important centres of trade, your capital. Like provinces like Constantinople, or Constantini, or however you want to pronounce that, London, Paris, or Ile-de-France. It'd be very key to, like, less nations that normally have very poor base tax lands, because maybe they could use it to develop quite a rich set of lands which they would actually make money off. For example, nations like Kilwa down here, not all their lands are rich, not all of them are super poor, but you could possibly, with the thing in the future, end up developing quite a rich set of lands, and then quite easily take over, say, the rest of East Africa in quite a nice fashion as well. Economies are going up, so I'm slowly gaining improved manpower and a higher force limit, which is reducing the amount of over force limit I have to pay. And it also actually gives me more income anyway, so this is slowly going to go up. I'd prefer the piety, need to convert things over here relatively quickly. I would imagine common sense would also enable, for example, certain nations that perhaps say you're playing Byzantium in a multiplayer game, and you may agree with the Ottomans to give up, say, capital to them, and then you take this small area here. Only normally 6 base there to thrive from, and I could imagine you could actually quite likely do that, because now you might be able to develop it into a very little rich centre, and be able to work maybe as a semi-vassal state if the Ottomans are feeling kind, and perhaps, for example, take over like islands like Malta, Crete, and basically just be a Mediterranean power, maybe eventually taking over Italy and advancing up here. Now that no longer has any overtime penalty, so that's nice. And God, they got a good Sultan. This is going to be done soon. Looks like their tech is going to keep up with me, which might be a problem. Since normally I rely on taking out the Mamluks with my superior technology, which it seems I might not actually have available this time. They have a pretty god tier Sultan. I would also imagine common sense will also benefit certain other nations, like ones relying on trade like Venice, who could develop their area into a very, very powerful trade holder, which might make them even more overpowered than they already have been in several games I've played, where they've been able to spam, due to their trade, humongous mercenary armies, which take out, say, the entirety of, say, Mamluk. I've seen them take, from Mamluks, the Suez Canal. Let's see, will that go away now? There. Well, it's probably just gone down a little bit, and now it's gonna come back, but it doesn't matter much. Imagine common sense is also going to be beneficial to natives, who normally can't, due to the fact that they don't colonize very well, might be able to instead use their points or such, or money, which they often accumulate a big stockpile of, in developing certain cities of theirs, which would enable them to, quite possibly, because I think the AI calculates if it wants to colonize by a certain formula, like how much a colony will give, and how much they're earning and such. Or maybe I think it's just turned off as a whole for natives. I'm not positive on this. But I imagine this means the natives could perhaps end up colonizing more in future patches. Either way, this will hopefully be the last episode at peace, since the manpower is relatively fully recovered. And I guess I'll see you all next time.